Good evening, good day, good morning. It all depends on where you are, but you could have been anywhere in the world, and yet you're here with me. Pelicans Daily, presented by Fan Arch. I'm your host, Dylan Bruton. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Keep doing what y'all been doing. Keep supporting. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate y'all for being on this journey, on this ride. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it going. Now, a lot of these episodes I've talked about potential trades where we would get an extra first round pick. Last episode, I talked about one with the Magic where we get like the 25th pick. So I kind of want to bridge off of that. And a prospect who I found very interesting, who is said to be mocked around there, is Carter Bryant, who was a freshman at Arizona this past year. And he's only 19 years old, 6'8", 220. Very good size measurables. Now, the numbers do not jump off the screen at all. I'm going to be very real. He averaged 6.5 points, 4 boards, an assist, a steal, a block. 46% from the field, though. 37 from 3, 69.5, so pushing 70% from the free throw line. But he only played 19 minutes a game. You know what I'm saying? And he was a freshman, like true freshman. Was a McDonald's All-American guy. He averaged 8 points, nearly 5 boards, a block, and almost 2 steals a game, and increased in 5 more minutes and 24 minutes a game. And in the NCAA tournament, they made it all the way to the Sweet 16 to Duke. Sadly, they lost 100-93. Well, not sad for me as a Duke fan, but sad for Brian and those Wildcats. Now, as a player, you know what I'm saying, he doesn't look to be a superstar. He doesn't look to be, a franchise guy, but I was watching his highlights. I was watching his film, and I just loved the energy. I loved the overall intensity that he played with. I loved the hustle, and I loved his ability to be able to pick smart shots. You know what I'm saying? Whether cutting, whether getting open on the perimeter. You know what I'm saying? He's not a guy that's going to require or need the ball much, but he plays hard defense. He crashes the board incredibly well. You know what I'm saying? Because the scoring needs some work. You know what I'm saying? His season high was 14, but it was a very efficient game that he had. That he put up that against Cincinnati in the game they won, 72-67, and Cincinnati was the 16th ranked team. So hey, he upped his play against good teams. He shot 5 for 5 from the field, 3 for 3 from 3, 1 or 2 from the free throw line, 4 boards and a block. But it's the all around, the defense, the rebounding. He got 11 rebounds versus Kansas State. And in that game, they did lose 73-70. And then against ASU, against their in-state rival, he got 4 steals. And he also had 8 points, 10 boards, and 3 blocks. So he's ultimately like very much a Swiss Army knife type of guy. But with his size, with his physical profile, he's gotten some interesting comparisons. You know what I'm saying? He's been compared to guys like Jeff Green, Trevor Ariza, who I could see a lot in this game. And look, Ariza was a big reason for that Lakers team in 2009. And some argue that if he was healthy in 2008, then maybe the Lakers would have had a better chance of beating the Celtics. But they won in 2009, largely, obviously because of Kobe. Let's not get it twisted out. But Ariza was a very valuable role player on that team. Played some great defense against Rashard Lewis and Hedo Turkoglu. Another guy he's been compared to, Kelly Oubre, which I can see from the physical profile. They kind of look alike, so I can see on that note too. But as far as just their build, Kevin Knox, which that's not a great comparison to get, but Kevin Knox coming out of high school was that dude. But NBA wise, it's a little rough. He had a good rookie year though. Keon Ellis, who's a very underrated player for those Kings, and then our guy Trey Murphy. Now that one I actually didn't mind too bad because I think looking at Trey's progression in his game, right, he is miles and leaps and bounds to where he was when he came into the league. But as an ultimate ceiling, that it doesn't hurt. And given that we just there's so much uncertainty and questions about this roster moving forth in the offseason, it does not hurt to stock up on depth. It does not hurt to stock up on guys who are okay with not getting and needing the ball, don't need that type of limelight. You know what I'm saying? They're happy to go out there, guard the other opposing team's best perimeter player, dive for loose balls, crash the glass. You need those type of players, you know what I'm saying, in any winning system, you know what I'm saying. And I've talked a lot about with Herb how he reminds me a lot of Tayshaun Prince, but there's some I can see, not on the point, like not the versatility wise, but maybe more leaning into the James Posey type with Carter Bryant, you know what I'm saying, in terms of being the ultimate glue guy, a good shooter from perimeter, efficient shot maker, but when it comes down to it, his bread and butter is defense, rebounding, hustle, and hey. But this is now. I'm not at all saying we should jump the gun and pick him at 7. Oh no. I'm saying if we do go forth with a trade that gives us an extra pick, and a guy like Carter Bryant is sitting there, you know what I'm saying, at only 19 years old, there's a lot of potential for him. His ceiling is pretty high. His stock has been going up because a lot of scouts are just going back watching his film and watching how tough he plays and the edge he plays with. And he comes from a basketball family, so people are looking, okay, there might be something interesting here. Now, really, for a player who might be something interesting there, Nolan Traore. Now, I know European and foreign prospects, some people are still a little, still a little bit iffy on, Not all of them pan out into stars, not all of them pan out into these face the league players, but, that experience that you get playing against grown men, like adult men with pensions and families, right? That sometimes really does set you apart because it gives you a different level of backbone. It gives you a different level of maturity, when the stakes are at that level. Unlike guys like Kasparis, unlike guys like Egan DeMar, who I might talk about in another video, he didn't go make the jump to go play college ball in the U.S. Nolan Traore, though, he, has a lot of potential. There's a lot of people who are very, very high on his game just because of the upside. He's a 6'5" point guard. He's seen as the fastest player of this entire draft class. And there's some really great athletes in this class, so that means something. Seen as the fastest player, has an incredibly nice set of ball handling ability. Now the numbers on paper look better than the efficiency. He averaged 12 a game, 2 boards, 5 assists, nearly a steal and nearly a block. The efficiency needs work though. 39% from the field, 30% from 3, 71% from the free throw line. All that has to massively improve. And this is a very hot take. I don't see us picking him, but some scouts love upside. Some teams love upside. I'm more in the boat of look, let's get more proven guys that are more likely to come in and be ready to ball out. But I think that, he played well in big time play. He put up 18 in the Nike Hoop Summit in the summer before the season against Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, and Dylan Harper. That looks like the top, 3 draft order as far as who's going to go 1 through 3. So he plays up to his competition, which is good. In the ANCT finals, he broke the scoring record, and this was against Barcelona, mind you. Barcelona is one of the best international teams. He put up 45 points. And he's seen right now as arguably the biggest and most propped up French prospect since Victor Wembanyama. So he's amongst some names, and I liked his NBA comparisons a lot. Actually, I was very intrigued. Right? They said his ultimate ceiling is between our guy DeJounte Murray, a taller Tony Parker, which he's gotten a lot of those comparisons, especially being French. And I can see where they're coming from with the Tony Parker perspective, especially with the need and improvement to get his jumper right. But in terms of the shot creation, the speed, and the quickness, he has a lot of that. And then shades of Kyrie, which this is not my words. This was NBA Draft Scout. But hey, take with that what y'all will. Now his floor because that's his ultimate ceiling. But his floor is a little different. Now, they do got my guy Lonzo Ball. I'm a big Lonzo Ball fan. Still, y'all saw me a couple episodes ago with the Triple B sweater. You know what I'm saying? It's big baller brand over here. But Lonzo as a floor, which is not a bad floor at all. I mean, Lonzo enjoyed some really good years with us. You know what I'm saying? He got his confidence up. He got his jumper right. And then he went over to Chicago, and they nearly were a title contender in that 2022-2023 year. So, okay, for a floor, that's not bad. The other guys on the list, a little rougher. Scoot Henderson, who I haven't fully given up on. I think he has a lot of talent. He's got to work on his jumper tremendously. But having a coach like Chauncey Billups, who is one of the best shooting point guards, I think that's going to pay dividends for him. But Killian Hayes was the name where I was like, that's not a name you want to be compared to, personally. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully Killian finds his footing somewhere, but NBA-wise, it's not look good so far. But, you know what I'm saying? Upside, right? The NBA is all about upside. That's why youth is prioritized more. That's why, you know what I'm saying, the three names I named of Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, all of them true freshmen. You know what I'm saying? And, Nolan's 20. So, I mean, it all kind of, or sorry, he's about to turn 20. So, the upside, right? The upside is tantalizing. And given that we don't necessarily know who our point guard of the future is going to be, because no disrespect to Jose, but he's likely going to be, you know what I'm saying, in that JJ Barea role, which is nothing wrong with. JJ Barea was a valuable part of that 2011 Mavs team, but we need to figure out what we're going to do at the point. DeJounte is 28 and going to be coming off an Achilles injury. CJ is likely going to be moved. So, or is the player that is most likely to move. Let's put it like that. So we have to figure out what we're going to do at the point guard position. Now, y'all heard me episodes and episodes ago say I want Jeremiah Fears. I do. No secret at all. And if not him, either Kaman or Khan. But there's a lot of options at pick 7. There is. And this draft, I think, right now mock drafts are going off of their projections. I think 1 through 3 are pretty much set. But who knows? A big trade could happen. You know what I'm saying? And whoever wins this NBA Finals, because, hey, the Knicks are still in the thick of it. So that, whoever wins the Finals, whoever gets out the East to meet OKC, and whoever wins, right? When teams win, teams often look at, okay, how do we get like them? How do we replicate their success? So that plays a big role into what happens. And we're going to be no stranger to that as well. I definitely think President Dumars is going to look at some of these other rosters and look and see what the value is and look and see what kind of success are they having. How do we reach that? How do we build that type of foundation? But I am fascinated by Nolan's game a lot. I think that his upside is very high. But I do think, yes, there is some cause for concern as far as with his shooting. And his offensive game is still, it's still a development, still work, he's still working through. But he put up 45 in a championship game. He put up 18 against the top competition of his age. So I'm not too worried. So, that would be, some people might feel like it's a reach, but sometimes you got to gamble. Sometimes you got to, you got to take a pick that nobody is really expecting and hope it pays off and pays dividends. So we shall see. Now, speaking of paying off and paying dividends, my guy Jonathan Kuminga, man, I wrote an article about him with when I was a writer with Clutch Points, and I wrote an article about Jonathan Kuminga, and I was very high on Jonathan Kuminga coming out of his draft class in 2021, and this upcoming year, I predicted him to win Most Improved Player. It didn't happen, but I think Jonathan Kuminga still has a lot of untapped potential. The kid is not even 23 years old. He's 22 years old, 6'7", can play at both the 3 and the 4. You know what I'm saying? Which I feel like is very underrated because a lot of small forwards can really only play at the 3 or the 2. And I've seen Kuminga get, minutes at the 2 and look fine. But he can play at the 4. You know what I'm saying? Now, this past year, he averaged 15 a game, nearly 5 boards, 2 assists on 45% shooting, nearly 31% from 3, and 67% from the free throw line. Last year, you know what I'm saying, he averaged 16 a game, 5 boards, 2 assists, so nearly identical numbers, but his efficiency was a lot better. 53% from the field, 32% from 3, and nearly 75% from the free throw line. These last 2 years, you average those numbers out, that's about nearly 16 a game, 5 boards, 2 assists, 49 from the field, 31 from the 3, and about 71% from the free throw line. And Jonathan Kuminga has been very vocal about his frustrations in Golden State. He's been very vocal about, not liking the way Coach Kerr has the rotation set up. He's gotten a lot of DNPs, and he's a guy that wants to show improve. Now, the only thing, the only reason why I bring Jonathan Kuminga up is I saw on NBA Daily podcast with via Bleacher Report, they were talking about like 6 places that he could potentially end, and they threw the Pelicans into it. And he would need to be signed and traded because he is a restricted free agent, and he'll be set to earn $30 million. He turned down a 5-year deal, so I think that just speaks to like, I don't want to be here. I want a fresh start. And again, given the uncertainty, right? As I said last episode, no one is untouchable. No one is fully safe. So God forbid, right? We have to get rid of Herb. We have to get rid of Trey. I really don't want that. Y'all know I don't want that for Zion, but I don't want that for Herb or Trey. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't help to get a player with a similar type of skill set. A guy who can score from a variety part of the court, play lockdown defense, has two-way potential, and is very athletic. And the ceiling is still high. You know what I'm saying? He was 3rd on the team in scoring in the playoffs this year. Averaged, again, near similar stats, 15 a game, 2.5 boards, an assist, 48% from the field, 40% from 3, so that was an increase, and 71% from the free throw line. But where he really stepped up was in the last 3 games against the Timberwolves. He averaged 26.3 points per game. And he was playing very good defense on Ant. Ant did not score a lot on Kuminga versus when they put Brandon Podzinski out there on him. And, no diss to B Pods, like his game a lot, but he doesn't have the athletic ability. He plays hard, plays incredibly hard, but he doesn't have the athletic ability to stay with Ant. But Kuminga was making him work for every single point out there. Obviously, the Timberwolves just, without and the Warriors without Steph, it was too much to overcome. But I was very impressed with Kuminga, and I really like his game a lot. I feel like, wherever he goes, as long as he gets an opportunity to be a starting player, I think he's got a lot of untapped potential. Now, I see some people that are kind of, they feel like he's more athlete than player, but I feel like he's just more so he hasn't been properly utilized. And perhaps, a fresh start, greener pastures somewhere else, that could do wonders for him. And given we don't know who's going to be on this roster, like I've been saying before, certain guys are going to be there. Zion, Trey, Herb. Well, now we don't know. You know what I'm saying? As per the the recent report, we don't know who's going to be on this team. This could be a whole different team by the time the season fully kicks into gear. So he's definitely a player that I think we should look into. Why not? Why not? Give Golden State a call. You know what I'm saying? See what they want. They want a guy like CJ again. You know what I'm saying? They could use more. I think I think Golden State right now they're kind of in a rock. They're caught between a rock and a hard place because the era that brought them their success, their winning pedigree with Steph, with Draymond. Because Clay's no longer there anymore, which can't lie. It's kind of sad. Like, what I'm saying? They were a very core part of that 2010s dynasty that they had. But they're trying to figure out moving forth what they do, right? They got a lot of young guys on the team. You know what I'm saying? I mentioned B-Pod. I mentioned Moses Moody. A guy like Moses Moody. They're trying to figure out who is going to be in their core. How do they build? But they made that trade when they made that trade to get Jimmy Butler. It to me signified, okay, they still are trying to compete. They're still trying to push for a title. So if you add a guy like CJ, have him come off the bench, I mean, whatever value Jordan Poole provided on that 22 team, times that by 5 and 10 with CJ. Not to slight Jay Poole. I love his game a lot. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna lie. Little backdrop on me, but like prior to any injuries I had, I was a showboating type of player like Jay Poole. Make no mistake. I love his mentality. I love the baddies in the crowd. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Let me, you know what I'm saying? I was a point guard, but I watched a lot of Rucker Park growing up. Watched a lot of and one, so I was very influenced, and I could tell Jay Poole had a similar type of upbringing. But with the Warriors, they're trying to figure out again, can they capitalize on a title window? Is it still there? Because I do believe that Steph is still a top 10 player. As long as he's there, you have a fighting chance. And he was playing incredibly well against Houston. They knocked off the number 2 seed in the West. Now, granted, Houston's a young team. They didn't have the experience and pedigree, but, the results spoke for themselves. And prior to that injury in Minnesota, it looked like it was going to be a very back-and-forth type of battle. So Kuminga just might not fit. He might be the odd man out with Jimmy there. But, their loss could be our gain. So who knows? Who knows? And last but not least, but should we have more faith in Troy Weaver? Now, I talked about a lot of Troy Weaver's, his background in terms of being, the scout who scouted and recruited Melo to the Syracuse team. I talked about his time in OKC with scouting and being a big influence for them drafting Russell Westbrook. Prior to him really being known and seen as a guy who could, potentially be an MVP and potentially, and be the triple double guy. And then, his draft experience in Detroit with getting Cade, with getting Jalen Duren, with getting Asar Thompson, Ron Holland, guys who are very much a part of the core over there in Detroit. And Detroit is a team that is peaking and developing. And let me get the proper. I think. Oh no. Wait a minute. But okay, here we go. Yeah. My bad. But what fails to be mentioned, and he only spent a year in Washington, but they were able to get quite a nice draft haul. You know what I'm saying? Last year they got obviously they struggled the year prior. They struggled the 2023, 24 years, so they got the second pick. But they turned that into Alex Sarr, who started out slow but had a good rookie year, was on the all-rookie first team, averaged 13 a game, 6.5 boards, almost 2.5 assists, nearly a steal, nearly 2 blocks a game. Now, the efficiency was a little rough. You know what I'm saying? As a big, 39% is not cutting it. But he has the floor spacing ability, around 31% from 3 and 68% from the free throw line. But he had he had a really good game against Denver, and them at full health. He put up 34, 6, and 5, and they won that game 126-123. And that was a big game for him. They also drafted Keyshawn George at pick 24. That pick they acquired. It was first the Knicks pick from Dallas, but then they were able in a trade able to get that to the Wizards. And he enjoyed also a solid rookie campaign, averaging nearly 9 a game, 4 boards, 3 assists, nearly 3 assists, a steal, and nearly a block. Efficiency-wise, got work to do there. 37% from the field, 32% from 3, 75% from the free throw line. But he plays a very smooth game. I've watched some of his film because I liked his game coming out of Miami. I thought he had a lot of untapped potential. I do feel like maybe he should have stayed back, just to maximize and develop a little bit more. But, you got to strike while the iron is hot. You don't want to come out the draft too late and you got injuries or anything like that. And he had a big game against Phoenix, put up 24, 4, and 4 in a game that they lost 130-123. But, again, like a player like Sarr, I think they're hoping he's going to be the franchise cornerstone. A guy like Keyshawn George, he could be, just an all-around swingman, a guy that does a little bit of everything, a guy that is able to, be versatile, guard the best player, space the floor and be able to create opportunities for himself and others. And then one of my favorite players of this last class, now he was picked 14, but I wanted to spend a little more time talking about him. But a guy that, that I feel like Troy Weaver probably had a lot of influence, had the most amount of influence in scouting because he seems like a Troy Weaver type of player. But Bud Carrington, out of Pittsburgh. Now, he was drafted by Portland from Golden State. The pick was from there. And it was sent to Memphis. Then it was sent to Boston, but then finally traded over to Washington. And he averaged nearly 10 a game on 4 boards, 4 assists, a steal. And he played all 82 games, started in 57 of them, shot 40% from the field, 34% from 3, 81% from the free throw line. But he had some big games. He had a season-high 32, 9-7 versus Orlando. They lost that game, unfortunately, 109-97. But, to put up those kind of numbers, and he put up a very efficient stat line in that game, put up those kind of numbers against, one of the best defenses in the league, that's no small feat. And he was a freshman. He had a very good freshman year at Pittsburgh. Won ACC rookie was the ACC rookie of the year. So the upside with him is high, and the fact that you get 3 guys who could potentially be all part of the core, all part of your future. Now the Washington, they've got another top 5 pick incoming this year. There's a lot to look forward to if you are a Wizards fan, which that sounds crazy. But I say all that to say that we should have that same type of optimism over here in New Orleans. If we are able to land another pick, we're able to stockpile. I trust in Troy Weaver's judgment. Now, I talked about President Dumars, his track record with drafting is a little sketchier. He's had some misses, but Troy Weaver makes up for where President Dumars is not as strong in terms of finding and scouting. So I think we should just keep an open mind because ultimately, scouting is not easy. Hindsight is 20/20. Obviously, there's guys who you can just look at and see, yep, he's going to be special. But there's guys that you look at and you're like, I wouldn't think you'd be a star. Like I'll be super honest. I did not think that Chet Holmgren was going to be having the success that he did, just given off of his weight. I was like, that's a concern. But he's been a big reason for the turnaround in OKC. And he's going to play a huge role in their goal and quest to capture, the franchise's first championship since 1979. So when they were the Supersonics. So, that's just a small example of looks and appearance does not always guarantee everything. It's all about between the ears. It's all about the ability to play on both ends. You have to factor in so many different things when you're looking at a draft prospect. And all the talk is going to be on draft day. We got a month. We got less than a month ahead of us, so I'm very excited. And I'm very excited for what we do, in particular. Right, this is going to be a very exciting draft. There's a lot of star power. There's a lot of guys as well who look like they're going to carve out long careers anyway, just as starters and high-level role players. And our goal is to get the best, amount of players possible. With, obviously pick 7, you want to get a guy who's an all-star potential at minimum. So obviously we're going to be shooting for the moon with that. But if we're able to get more picks, we're able to get more opportunities to draft other guys, get guys that can be valuable role players. And if one of them turns into a star, hey, who's complaining? If you're able to get a star player at pick, 25, 26, 27, you're not complaining about that at all. That's getting more bang for your buck. That's getting more value. So just a lot to consider, a lot to look into, a lot to take into consideration. But that's why you need to be subscribed to Pelicans Daily. More content on the way. Appreciate y'all for the support. It's going to be weird. No basketball for a couple days. But we'll see what happens with those Knicks and those Pacers. We'll see who ends up emerging out the East to play OKC. Very excited. It's been a very exciting brand of basketball. But I can't wait for the Pelican season. All right? So make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow FanArch. Tap in with everything that they're doing. Follow me on the gram at Dylan_Bruton10. Shoot me, follow. Let's talk hoops. But much love to y'all. Enjoy yourselves. Stay blessed. Stay beautiful. That'll be concluding another episode of Pelicans Daily.